As folks are coming on into the Zoom call, I'll just get us started with just introductions. Hi, welcome everyone and thanks for being here today. My name is Lucy. I'm a part of the Austin Global Shapers here in Austin, Texas. The host organizations are Global Shapers, the Austin Commons, and GoodPolitics. A little bit about Austin Shapers. This event is curated in partnership with the Austin Hub of Global Shapers. Global Shapers is an initiative of the World Economic Forum and serves as a network of city-based hubs developed and led by young people who are committed to improving the state of the world through public-private collaboration. And groupthink is our events platform through Global Shapers for community building conversations. It's time to explore often unasked questions and engage a plurality of perspectives around a variety of topics ranging from identity to belonging. Tonight, I'm really happy to welcome Elaine Almeida as our moderator. Elaine is a mass communication doctoral student at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, working on the intersection of healing, pleasure, and liberation for queer communities of color. She's also a community artist and freelance illustrator led by the axioms strength and tenderness. Tattoos and prints of her art can be found globally. Elaine can also be found creatively collaborating with Woke Beauty here in Austin, Texas. Want to welcome Elaine.
Alrighty, thank you so much. Hi, I am so excited to be here with you guys. I first wanted to introduce our great panelists, and so we have a great range of hosts here for you guys. We have Amy Stansbury, Editor-in-Chief of the Austin Commons. Amy, if you'd love the wave. And Amy is a local journalist and civic enthusiast with a passion for making government accessible and easy to understand. She is the Editor-in-Chief of the Austin Commons, a local news site that helps Austinites be informed and make a difference. She's also the host of the Austin Commons Radio Hour, a podcast and radio show on 91.7 FM with the same mission. In 2017, she co-authored A Beginner's Guide to Local Government, a coloring book / zine that teaches Austinites the basics of how local government works and how to get involved. So welcome, Amy. And then from GoodPolitics, we have Liz Coufal and Nathan Ryan, both from GoodPolitics. Liz is passionate about social impact, beginning her career at a climate justice nonprofit before entering Austin's tech industry in 2015. Civic engagement is her joy, and she's dedicated to help break down the barriers to entry, keeping young Americans from engaging in their democracy. When she's not busy with her day job at GoodPolitics, Liz is an active board member of the Austin Technology Alliance and Legacy Collective, a national donor-based advising group. Advise Giving Fund. And then Nathan, also at GoodPolitics, is a serial entrepreneur, business and community leader. He is a co-founder / CEO of Blue Sky Partners, focused on helping organizations put healthy, sustainable systems in place so they can scale, and co-founder / CEO of GoodPolitics, focused on connecting disengaged voters to the political process. He also serves on the board of directors at the LBJ Presidential Library's Future Forum and the Austin Monitor, the Austin Chamber of Commerce's COVID-19 Task Force to reopen Central Texas, and on the Economic Prosperity Commission and the Ethics Review Commission for the City of Austin. Nathan lives in Austin, Texas with his wife Amanda and dogs Max and Rory. Let me take a breath and let's all welcome our great moderators. Hi! I'm so excited you guys are here, and in the spirit of accessibility, our plan tonight is to record the panel. And so if you guys are comfortable, we would love to start recording, and if folks want to turn off their cameras so that way they're not in the recording, that might just be the best option for everybody. That way we can just keep things equitable and distribute this to the people who need it the most. Welcome, you guys. I'm so happy you're here. I think why this event is important is because I remember during my first presidential election, I went to the ballot. I was like, all right, I know who to vote for president. And then I saw there was a bunch of other things I had to vote for that I was not prepared for at all, right? I was like, wait, Hillary, and then who else, right? And so I think this is a great opportunity for us to not just think about who we should be voting for, but what they actually do, right? A lot of times I go to the ballot and I'll be like, hey, do you just want to completely vote Democrat on this? And while it's an option, I would love for us to critically think, wait, what's that person going to do anyways, right? And so Nathan, Liz, and Amy here are going to help us think, wait, the Texas Railroad Commissioner isn't in charge of railroads, and other really important questions. Nathan, I would love to start with you and kind of chat with you about those big ticket items that we kind of know on the ballot. Do you want to walk us through nationally things we should be looking for and thinking about?
Sure, absolutely. I'm super excited to be here with y'all. I see a few friends on, big fan of the Global Shapers program, and excited to be here tonight with my friends Liz and Amy. And thanks to everybody, Elaine, for hosting this conversation, and the Global Shapers team for inviting us to be here. As Elaine mentioned in my short bio that I'm now realizing has way too few periods and way too many commas and or way too many commas.
Semicolon jungle over there.
Semicolon jungle, yes. As she mentioned, at GoodPolitics, our goal is to make, much like Austin Common, is to make politics accessible. And one thing that we think gets lost in this conversation and in any conversation about elections is just that elections are kind of a popularity contest, but at the end of the day, you are hiring somebody to actually do a job for a period of time, right? Our job as citizens is to elect people to actually run things and do things or not do things, depending on how you'd like to vote. That is an option too. And so I'm really excited to be here to talk about this. We just released a job descriptions landing page and a bunch of resources around that. And so Liz and I will get a chance to talk about that tonight. But I'm going to kind of we're going to start tonight with federal positions. And I'm going to start with the U.S. House of Representatives. We've got 3, right? Well, we've got 4. We've got the U.S. House of Representatives, the U.S. Senate, the President, and the Supreme Court. And I'm going to start with the U.S. House of Representatives. The House was designed constitutionally to make sure that there's a House of Congress that represents a smaller number of Americans than the president, who represents all Americans. In the US Senate, we have 2 that represent each state. So the House is divided up into small-ish districts. My dog is here. She wants to say hello. Actually, they're both in here. You might hear them at some point. So the House is divided up into small-ish districts in each state, with each U.S. House rep representing about 275,000 Americans in their state, which is a really big jump from the roughly 57,000 that each House rep represented when the country was founded. The House's main job is to legislate. Their job is to take the 435 representatives that are there and listen to their constituents to debate and write legislation that will eventually be passed and sent to the U.S. Senate. And with that, I'll move over to the U.S. Senate. The U.S. Senate has 2 representatives for every state in the United States. It was designed by the founders as a kind of cooling mechanism. They thought at the beginning that the U.S. House would be hot and full of like tons of debate, and they intentionally designed the system to move slow. And so the Senate was supposed to cool it down and take a really hot debate. And instead of letting the federal government, you got to remember, they're leaving England and they're concerned about overreach. And there are lots of things that they got wrong. But this is one thing that they were thinking about at the time, is that they wanted to make sure that if there were popular uprisings, that the Senate would move slowly with that legislation so that they weren't overburdening this large country, this big experiment, with too many things. And so the US Senate was supposed to be a cooling mechanism, where the US House was designed to be just hot and full of raging debates all the time. And so the Senate is the second step in the legislative process. It's where the US House sends legislation as it continues to be debated by Congress. If something passes the House and the Senate, it goes to the president for signature or veto. The Senate is also responsible to advise and consent. You may have heard this a lot recently with conversations that are going on related to Amy Coney Barrett's nomination to the Supreme Court. But advise and consent means that they advise and consent on all presidential appointments. That includes cabinet members, department heads, and judges, including the Supreme Court. And lastly, on those two things, on U.S. House and on Senate, they're both tasked with oversight of the federal government and the executive branch in general. So this is the legislative branch. The U.S. House of Representatives and the Senate are the legislative branch. They are where all of the legislation and everything that the federal government does, including its budgets, originate and are passed. And they will investigate how those things are being run by the executive branch and the federal government once it's been enacted as law. Elaine, I would love if that after that wall of text to see if you have something before I jump over to the president.
Well, my question is that as a voter, when I go on my ballot, am I voting for both Senate members? How many representatives am I voting for? Or today when I go vote, well, not today, but when I go vote, what's actually going to be on my ballot for the state of Texas?
Right. So there are 2 senators for Texas, right? And they have 6-year terms. I guess I didn't say this. The U.S. House Rep has a 2-year term, and they are elected every 2 years. So every single election, every single 2-year gap election, every single of all of the 435 members of the U.S. House are up for re-election. So they have to turn it around quick. And the thought again being, if you're not representing your district well, you should get booted out, and you should get booted out quickly, because that body is supposed to represent people as closely as possible at the federal level. The U.S. Senate is every 6 years. Again, the idea being that it moves slow. So you want to ease the pressure off of those senators so that they don't feel like they have to be it's literally designed so that they don't have to be super responsive to people. So you have the U.S. House of Representatives, that's 2 years. The president is 4 years. Senators are 6. And so next year, we won't have a senator for Texas, or in 2022, we won't have a senator for Texas on the ballot, I believe, or maybe I'm wrong. We won't. Thank you, Liz. This year, we have John Cornyn, who is up for re-election. He's the sitting U.S. senator up against MJ Hagar. And then U.S. House reps, literally every single one is up. So there is a U.S. senator up for re-election or a new option to vote in. And then every single U.S. House district, no matter where you live, you're going to have one on your ballot.
Well, that's super helpful. And then, of course, if you want to go into president for us.
Sure. So the president actually has a job. I don't know that people realize this. The president actually is just a job, and the job is to run the federal government. Their job is they are the only representative that literally represents all of the people. And their job is to represent the people well by running the federal government well, and making sure that it's responsive to every American, and making sure that they are advising Congress on what they could pass to make it easier for the president and the federal government to run America better for every American. And that is kind of it. I mean, at the end of the day, like, it is you are the chief executive of the country, and your job is to make sure that you are working with, this massive board of directors that is the House of Representatives and the Senate, to make sure that they can make regulatory changes that will make it easier for you to run the country for everybody in the country. And so I don't know if you would like me to get into Supreme Court, but those are the 3.
Well, no, that seems really helpful, because I would love that now that we've taken this really, really big view, if Liz, you can help us think more specifically what's happening in the state of Texas. If you want to, again, this railroad commissioner, if you can walk me through what he actually does, that would be so helpful.
Yeah, absolutely, Elaine. And Nathan, thank you for walking us through our 3 branches of government. It's important, right? It's really important to know what folks do at the top, even though it feels a little disconnected from us. It really isn't. And just to go off of what Nathan said, like, you can call these people. like I have my U.S. senators, Cornyn's and Cruz's numbers on my phone. I for their Austin offices, for their DC offices. Same thing with my Congress member, Lloyd Doggett. No matter who you're voting for, I would encourage every single person on this call to look up those office numbers and save them on your phone and get used to calling them, because you pay their bills. As US Americans, as taxpayers, and that includes immigrants too, who aren't technically citizens, like you pay taxes, you pay their bills. So absolutely call them whenever you have an opinion about something, because it is their job to answer. And they hear from me a lot. So
thank you, Liz, for doing your civic duty. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. I'm going to dive in a little bit more to down ballot voting. As Nathan said, at GoodPolitics, it is our goal to make democracy fun and accessible. And it's awesome to be on this call with somebody like Amy Stansbury. She's been doing this work and doing it well for a long time. So if you don't follow the Austin Common, please do. I learn a lot from her media. And at GoodPolitics, we recently released job descriptions for all these different candidates. Our passion is down ballot voting. We don't think that the presidential election needs us to weigh in. We assume that people are going to vote for the president. Yeah. But to your point, Elaine, when it comes to railroad commissioner, the Chief Justice of the Texas Supreme Court, that's where we want to get involved and encourage people to know what these folks do, because again, we pay their bills. So I will dive into the railroad commissioner. Like you said, nothing to do with railroads. These folks actually regulate our energy industry, really around oil and gas. So from pipeline safety to regulating natural gas and hazardous liquid, a big point of contention right now in the railroad commissioner race is something called flaring, which is when different oil companies will actually burn leftover oil in the fields because it's too expensive to transport, or they just want to get rid of it. And that's something that is currently illegal, but it's come under contention, which is really interesting. So they deal with really interesting problems like that. This is also a very powerful office in Texas, because if you think about it, Texas has a lot of oil we produce and export, much more than other states. And so this person is close to that money, and they have a lot of political influence. There is not one railroad commissioner in Texas, but there are three, and they're elected every 6 years. The three railroad commissioners represent Texas at large. So we're not in different districts, it's all at large. And currently, the race that's going on is between three different folks. Krista Castaneda, she's the Democrat, and she is an engineer and attorney. Matt Starrett, he is a libertarian, and he is actually the founder of an oil and gas software company. And then Kat Green, who is representative of the Green Party. So it's really, really interesting to see this. It's an interesting race for those of you who followed it. So that's a little bit about the railroad commissioner. And Elaine, is that high enough for you, or do you want me to keep going? I have some other offices too.
Oh no, that is perfect. I didn't know there was three. This is so helpful.
Yeah. It's super interesting. I'm going to move on to the Texas Supreme Court. So as Nathan said, we have our federal Supreme Court. Texas, each state, we have our own Supreme Court too. So this is the court of last resort for civil matters. They basically determine to grant a review or judgment when a case is appealed. It can get appealed all the way up to the Texas Supreme Court. They mainly take on cases that present the most significant Texas legal issues in need of clarification. And it's made up of 8 justices and 1 chief justice. And they're each elected on a 6-year period. And they are partisan. So not all races, as we're going to get into it, are partisan. So for example, Austin City Council, people do not run as Republican or Democrat or Libertarian or whatever. There are no parties involved there. But with the Supreme Court, there are. They have 6-year terms, and they are elected at large. And currently, the Chief Justice is up for re-election against a couple other folks. The Chief Justice is Nathan Hecht. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. He's the incumbent. And I'm guessing most of you know, but just in case you know, the incumbent means that they currently have office. So Donald Trump is the incumbent being challenged by Joe Biden. So the Chief Justice is Nathan Hetch. He is being challenged by Amy Clark. She's a Democrat, as well as Mark Ashe, who is the Libertarian there. And I will go a little bit further. I have a couple other courts, which I think are really, really interesting. It's something that people don't talk a lot about, but especially putting together this resource, I've learned a whole lot about it. The Texas Criminal Court of Appeals, there's a few folks up for that court. And when I say folks, I mean judges. Currently, it is, I believe, place 3, place 4, and place 9 are all up within the Criminal Court of Appeals. And they are all at a 6-year term, and they're elected at large. So they ultimately have say over really egregious criminal appeals, including the death penalty. So if that's an issue that's important to you, this is a race that I would pay really, really close attention to. And again, it's 8 judges, and they're elected statewide. So right now it's place 3, 4, and 9. And if you want to learn more about who's running, I could get into all the people who are running, but it would take a while. So you can look up the League of Women Voters has a really awesome voter guide on this. It's nonpartisan. You basically just, Control F and find who's running for place 3, 4, and 9. So it's really, really helpful. There's also the Third Court of Appeals. And this is a little bit different. So there's 14 appellate courts in Texas, and this court consists of 6 justices hearing cases from 24 different counties, and there's 1 Chief Justice and 5 justices. And like all these other courts, they're elected every 6 years. But for this specific court, these folks are in Austin.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's, I believe, and I'll say the names of the people that are running. It's Jeff Rose. He's the incumbent being challenged by Darlene Byrne. And Rose has been in office for 6 years. And the Third Court of Appeals, this has jurisdiction over both civil and criminal courts. And then in civil cases, basically it's anything over $100. So it kind of expands to like all levels of society, which I think is really interesting. So that's another important race to watch. And then I'll go into just 2 more. I'm going to go into the district attorney. If any of you, which I'm sure all of you on this call, you guys are here because you care about your community, which is awesome. So thank you for being here. I'm sure you guys are aware of what happened in our nation over the summer with the death of George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement. When someone is killed by the police, typically what happens legally is that the district attorney will call a grand jury investigation. So that's why this race is really, really important to pay attention to. So the district attorney is up in Austin. It was pretty interesting because there was a woman named Margaret Moore. She was in office for a long, long time. She was the incumbent. She was a Democrat. It is a partisan race, and she had a challenger, Jose Garza, and that race was too close to call, so it went into a runoff. And Jose Garza has a very different platform than her. He was, I believe he was a public defender in the Workers' Defense Fund. He served in the Obama administration. Oh no, and he's the executive director of the Workers' Defense Project. So he has a very different platform than the former district attorney. And this is this is personally a race I'm really, really passionate about. And I would encourage all of you to research it more because it has a huge, huge impact on our community and taking care of families, most importantly. So basically think of the district attorney versus county attorney. The district attorney is the person who prosecutes felonies, and they call grand juries when necessary. The county attorney, that person will prosecute misdemeanors. So it's kind of a lower level prosecution.
Okay, no, that's super duper helpful. I feel like you've gone through so many of the little courts. I was wondering if you'd be able to, so I'm still taking all of this in, and also thank you for everyone who's been asking questions in the chat. our our speakers are able to answer them, but we will also, I forgot to mention this at the beginning, have a Q&A at the end. So we'll be able to get questions both ways. But, you know, we just talked about the district attorney, etc. I would love if Amy, our, you know, very local genius, if you could just go in and talk to me more about, like, wait, what else is happening locally since Liz just set up for what's happening at the state level, particularly with the district attorney. So if you want to talk about the county races, I would love to hear more information.
Yeah, thank you all. Again, my name is Amy, the editor-in-chief of the Austin Common. We're a local news site here in town that really tries to like explain local news and then give people steps for how to get involved. Because, you know, like we've talked about on this call, it's like so often the national news takes up all of our attention, and it's important, but also is what's happening in our own backyard. And it's easier to affect change here at the local level, and there's more opportunity to actually like call your city council member on the phone. I love that Liz said she keeps all of her elected officials' names in her phone. Like, I second that. That's a great idea. It makes it so much easier and to make these people more accessible to you. So I do have some visuals I might use to go through this.
That'd be so helpful. Yes.
So let's see. Can people see my screen?
We can.
Okay,
yes.
cool. I have like a lot of things in here, so I'm going to pass through some things that are not as important. One thing I always like to share is just like a little bit of this factoid that like local government races tend to get very little love. This is just like a little data point I like to share from the 2014 mayoral election in Austin, and there only 13% of Austinites voted in that race, and that's the mayor we still have today.
Wow.
So hopefully this year, you know, we're talking about a presidential election year, we'll have a higher voter turnout rate, but oftentimes people come to the ballot box, vote for president, vote for maybe Senate, and then they leave, and all of these other down ballot races tend to get ignored. So I'll start with the city of Austin real quick. In the city of Austin, if you live within Austin city limits, there are two big categories of things that will be on your ballot this year. One is city council races. So 5 of Austin's 10 city council races are up for election. And we also have 2 ballot propositions. Ballot propositions are these things you'll see on the ballot that have a lot of words on them, and then you vote for or against them. So you're not voting for a candidate, you're voting for or against a different city proposal. Just a little background is that Austin is divided into 10 city council districts. You can see here, and each district is represented by 1 council member. The districts that are up for election this year are 2, 4, 6, 7, and 10. So you can kind of maybe see yourself on this map. I can also put a link in of how you can figure out exactly what city council district you live in. And just as a little reminder, in case you're not familiar, city council members, they create laws or like policy direction for the city. They set the city's budget and property tax rate. If you were following a lot of this conversation over the summer around APD's budget, that was city council. And like Liz mentioned, they don't run with any party affiliation. So this sometimes can make it a little harder for people. If you're going into vote, you're not going to see a little D or an R next to their names, which for a lot of people is how they figure out who they're voting for. So you have to do a little bit of research ahead of time. And it is a full-time job. Sometimes people wonder that. And like I mentioned, just key issues of this election, key things that city council members do. Police reform obviously is a big issue on the ballot. Homelessness and housing affordability. Obviously in Austin, we have a big homelessness crisis. This is an issue that city council deals directly with. And then COVID-19 economic recovery. We know a lot of small businesses are hurting, our live music venues are hurting. This is all under the purview of Austin City Council. And so just to keep blazing through it, we've got Travis County elections are another aspect of what could be on your ballot this year. So just to like share the basics. So City of Austin is a city, right? Travis County is the county that most of the city of Austin lies within. So county governments are larger than city governments. It's just like another level up. In Travis County, you have places like Austin, Pflugerville, Bee Cave, Del Valley, Westlake. And so these are the county races. Sheriff is one of the things that's going to be on your ballot. It's kind of like a police chief, but again, for a larger jurisdiction for the entire county. Issues that they deal with tend to be things like officer use of force. Obviously, this is a big issue. And the sheriff also is in charge of managing the county jail system. So that's another big area. You can see here we have the names of the people who are running. Sally Hernandez versus Raul Vargas. Sally Hernandez is the incumbent. And I can send all of this to you all later so you can learn more about the candidates. I don't want to spend too much time like diving into that. Did you have a question?
No, I think that'd be really helpful if, I think people will feel more comfortable if we know that we can see the deck later. That would be super helpful for us. Yeah.
And Liz already covered district attorney, a key one. I second that. So important. District attorney is a really big race and doesn't tend to get a lot of attention. A local county race is the judge county court at law. So we have 7 local courts here in Travis County that handle criminal misdemeanor cases. A criminal misdemeanor is things like drunk driving or domestic violence. And we have one of these seats is basically up for election and is being contested, which means that 2 people are running. A lot of times with these smaller judge races, sometimes you don't even have someone challenge the incumbent. In this race there is. This is Judge County Court at Law number 9. You have incumbent Kim Williams running against Christopher David, who's a libertarian. Travis County Tax Assessor Collector. This is another one. Seems super boring, but is a really important job. The Travis County Tax Assessor Collector is responsible for registering voters in Travis County. So people might have heard that we now have a 97% voter registration rate in our county, which is a huge deal. Organizing that whole effort is the responsibility of our tax assessor collector, which the reason that it has that name, it's historic basically because there used to be a poll tax. And so that's why the person who in the county who was in charge of taxes also was in charge of voter registration. And it just lingers to this day.
Yeah, it's totally a misnomer. I would not have guessed that.
Yeah. And then they're also in charge of collecting taxes, but they don't set the property tax rate. So if you're upset with your property tax rate, that's not the Travis County tax assessor, that's your city council and other government entities. The tax assessor collector just collects them. And again, you have the candidates listed there. And then the other big thing that's on the county race is the commissioner's court. So I just talked about Austin City Council, which is like the governing body that makes policy and like laws for the city. The commissioner's court is basically the equivalent of that at the county level. And cities and counties in Texas deal with slightly different topics. It gets a little bit intricate, but generally a commissioner's court deals with issues like roads, parks, so Travis County Park, so like Lake Travis, or if you like to go to Hamilton Pool, right? These are parks that are run by our Travis County system. Criminal justice is a big purview of the county. They run our county jail system. Again, COVID-19, and they also do some healthcare, a little bit more healthcare policy than the city council does. And then they have their own budget and they tax us. They're one of our property taxing entities. So they're also responsible for our property tax bill. And so our Travis County Commissioner's Court, we have a few seats are up for election within that. We have County Commissioner in Precinct 1. Precinct 1 is in Northeast Travis County. Again, we have an incumbent running against a challenger there for this County Commissioner seat. And then we have also Precinct 3 is also up for election, and this is Western Travis County. This race is a little bit more interesting because there isn't an incumbent. The person who had served on this seat for years and years and years has retired. And so this is like a truly open seat and is one of the few seats in Travis County that has is genuinely contested between Democrats and Republicans. Probably not surprising to a lot of folks that Travis County tends to be a blue county, Democratic, but this particular precinct in Travis County is a little bit more competitive. So a more interesting race. And then the last one, when it comes to the Travis County Commissioner's Court, is something called the county judge. This is another great misnomer. A county judge is not a judge. It's more like a mayor. This goes back to historical purposes as well, why it's called this. But for all intents and purposes, you can just think of the county judge as the mayor of the county. So they kind of preside over the entire commissioner's court. They represent everyone in the county. And this seat is also open because the former Travis County judge was just elected to our state Senate seat. in a special election. So there was some reshuffling at the top there, different people left jobs. And so now this seat is open. So yes, that was a lot of words. That's
Great.
city and county.
Wow. Okay. So just that way I'm on the same page as everyone, is that so when I go to my ballot, I'm going to have, of course, the presidential, and then I'm going to have the Senate and the House, and then I'm going to have the state judges and then more local things. But then I think, Nathan, would you be able to help me? There's also some Senate and there's state Senate and legislature, right? Or am I missing something there? There's one more little thing I think I'm missing. So we have a bunch of judges I need to think about. I have a lot of local things that have names that might not be what I think they are. But then what else is happening on the state level that I should be thinking about?
Yes, there are state Senate and state House seats up. We don't have a governor up for re-election this time, but I mean, essentially, the Texas State House functions like a mini, you would hate this description, functions like a much smaller, a mini US Capitol, where the state Senate functions like the US Senate. There are 33 members, I believe, and the state House, which I'm blanking on how many state House members there are. Amy, Liz, do you know? Great, good, we're doing good.
I was gonna say there's 31 state senators and I think 150.
I'm
Amy,
feeling
That sounds right.
my voice is 100.
150.
Yeah,
Thank you, Krista. Thank you, Krista. So yeah, 150 and 31 in the Senate, and some of those will be up.
Okay.
Actually, all state House seats, just like U.S. House, are up for re-election this year, and then half of the state Senate seats are up for election this year.
Okay, awesome. So then before we go into even what the propositions are, like, so before I even have to read paragraphs on the ballot, right? Like, I love if as a group we could go through the ballot just like naming them together, right? So I'm going to have the president, and then I'm going to have, we can all work together on this one. Sorry, I'm used to
U.S. Senate.
So then I'll have the U.S. Senate, and then what else will I have?
Then you have your House member, your U.S. House member.
Okay, and so those are the things I'm thinking nationally, right, federally. And then when I think of the
Yes.
state of Texas, what am I thinking about? I'm thinking about what you just mentioned, right? The
Right.
Senate and who else?
You may have a state Senate election on your ballot, and you will have a state House seat on your ballot.
Okay, great. And then Liz, what are the other things I'm thinking about on a state level?
I mean, there's a whole lot. There's a lot of judges for also different courts throughout the state and your county level. So I would actually suggest going to vote411.org, because you can build your ballot there, because
Okay.
it's not even that we all live in different parts of the city or different counties. We live in different voting precincts.
Mhm.
So all of our ballots will be really, really different. Like Nate and I, we live like 15 minutes away and we have completely different ballots. So vote411.org is run by the League of Women Voters, who we love. Put in your address, and then select go to my races, and it'll populate your whole ballot for you based on exactly where you live.
Well, that's super helpful, because it sounds like there's a lot of things happening here.
Yeah.
How much of the so you just said that we'll all have different ballots. I'm thinking back to what Amy just shared, the bunch of things happening in Austin. For all of us, how much of the awesome things we'll be able to vote on? I know it will depend on where I live, but will we all be able to vote on the county judge? Will we all be able to vote on, I'm trying to think of another thing.
Yeah. I know, I hear you. Yeah, if you're in Austin, you're in Travis County. So yes, you'll be able to vote for the county judge for sure.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, and when it comes to city council districts, if you live in one of those 5 city council districts that's up for election, you'll get to vote on that. And then the other big thing to keep in mind is the prop. So if you that we're going to talk about in a minute. So if you live within Austin city limits, no matter where within Austin city limits, but as long as you live in the city, you will get to vote for these 2 ballot propositions as well.
Okay, that's super helpful. And then I guess I would love, so now that I've gone through my personalized district specific or voting precinct specific ballot, I may or may not have this proposition. Would you guys Break. I feel like Prop A gets a lot of publicity. Would you walk me through Prop A, but would you also walk me through Prop B? Even Googling Prop B, I'm still not sure what I'm looking at here. So I'd love any help on these two propositions.
Here, do you guys mind? I'll go ahead and share my screen again really quick, and maybe share some basics, and then Liz or Nate, if you want to chime in at any point, feel free to stop me. I'll just say, oops. On the basic level here, Prop A, this is what you'll see on your ballot, is this text on the right. It's super long and confusing. It's terrible. Just think of it as the public transportation bond. That's what Prop A is all about. Basically, you're going to get to vote on whether or not you want Austin to invest $7.1 billion into Project Connect, which is basically a major expansion of our public transit system. It includes 27 miles of rail, 9 new park and rides, which is buses, 4 new Metro Rapid routes, 3 new Metro Express routes, 15 neighborhood circulator zones, which is like on-demand pickup, and a downtown transit tunnel. So a lot of things. I'm going to just flip through these quickly. You can look at these again. There'll be an orange line that'll go like on Guad and Lamar, a blue line that goes to the airport. These are rail lines. A downtown transit tunnel, like a little mini subway kind of system, commuter lines to East Austin, a bunch of bus lines, like a lot of things. And then the big question that everyone asks then is the cost. About 45% of this, of the funding for this $7.1 billion project is anticipated to come from federal funding. And then also within this $7.1 billion is $300 million are set aside to prevent displacement along the new transit lines. So to go towards affordable housing and anti-displacement measures, because that's a fear, is that when you build this kind of transit infrastructure, it'll raise property values and that people will get pushed out. And then the other big question mark then is, like, what does that mean for my property taxes? And this is the estimate, is it'll cost you about $284 more in property taxes each year if you have a home worth about $325,000. And this is even if you're a renter. That's a big one that people get a little confused on. Even if you're a renter, you likely pay this unless your landlord for some reason is not passing this price along to you, which they certainly are. So you don't see it as directly, but you could still kind of guess in your mind about what this might cost you. So that's like the bare bones basics. Nate, do you have anything to chime in on a Prop A?
The only thing that I would say on this cost question, just because I know it's pretty relevant right now with a bunch of stuff going around, is you've got some folks that are talking about a 25% increase. You got other folks that are talking about a 4% increase. And my understanding of this, anybody who would like to chime in the chat, more than happy to talk about that, now or in the future. And then Amy, obviously, if you understand it differently, let me know. But essentially, Austin is one of 5 taxing entities for homeowners in Travis County. There are 4 others, including the county itself, essentially Travis County Public Health, Austin Community College, and AISD. And so all 5 of those, including the city of Austin, are what make up a portion of the property tax bill, and property tax in the state of Texas is the primary taxing engine because there is no income tax. And so it is about 19%. It does represent about a 19%, not 25%, but about a 19% increase of what this Austin's tax bill is. But that is one of 5, and it equates when you break it out across all 5 taxing entities, it's about 3.9 or 4% increase. It's about a 3.9 or 4% increase of the average homeowner's tax bill. And so that's why this would be 284, broken out over 12 months. And that would be the increase that you would see, not a 25% bump completely in your property tax bill. And I just want to, really clarify that, because I am a homeowner, and property taxes can just like gut you. And if they come out of nowhere, I mean, they really are a massive driver of gentrification and other sort of affordability issues as well. So I think it's really important to make sure that that's clear. It is not a 19% or 25% tax increase. It's a 4%, 3.9 or 4% increase of your total tax bill. And so I think it's just important to make that distinction. That's the only thing I'd add.
Yeah, that's a great explanation. I've gotten so many people have asked me about that. I know that's like a big point of confusion. And so, yeah, that's key to know.
That
Yeah.
is
Oh, I was just going to add one more thing before we move on to Prop B about Prop A. I would challenge everyone to think about this as not just a transportation issue, but also a very intersectional issue and why our city needs this in the first place. So for example, when COVID hit Austin, testing and access to testing was a really big issue. And there were some folks that worked really hard to get some drive-through testing spaces set up. And it was a huge win. And we were really proud because it was really hard to get drive-through testing so quickly. And there were some people that did. But then all of a sudden, folks were like, oh, well, what if you don't have a car? And then that kind of illuminated a whole other issue. It's like, oh, a lot of people in Austin, they don't have cars. And when you don't have a car, you don't have access to the best jobs. You don't have access to the best childcare, right? It's really hard to drop your kid off at daycare and then go to your job. So in my opinion, with Prop A, I think about it more as not just, oh, it'll reduce traffic and it's better for the environment, two things that are true that are great, but it's also about that intersectional issue of making sure people that need to travel around the city to take their kids to school, to take their kids to childcare, to go to their jobs, that they have access to do that.
No, that's a really helpful distinction and very great. I love that you articulated that because that was the exact issue that I had, right? COVID hit, I wanted to get tested and I didn't have a car. And so I was like, well, I guess I will stay home and perish, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
No, that was super helpful. I would love to, let's speed along and go to Prop B for a second. And then the final thing after Prop B, I'd love to do, just so that way people have a mental map of where we're going. We're going to talk about Prop B, and then we're going to go, wait, what about school boards? Why do they matter? And then we have a great list of questions in the chat that we'll get to. And then we'll be able to see all these great assets that you guys have created to help us learn more. But take it away. Tell me about what's happening with Prop B.
Okay, so just the basics again of Prop B. Again, on the right, you'll see this is what will be on your ballot. Again, a lot of very confusing language, but what's to keep in mind for Prop B is this is like the active transportation bond. So I like to just think Prop B, sidewalks, and bike lanes. That's what it's all about. And so basically, this is a $460 million bond that if passed will go to the funding for more sidewalks and bike lanes in the city. Specifically, $80 million of new sidewalks here in the city of Austin, $120 million worth of bike lanes and urban trails. Urban trails is like the Walnut Creek Trail, the Shoal Creek Trail, kind of bike only trails. And this is part of the city's overall goal to build out like a complete bike network so people could use that to get to work, for example. $65 million in Vision Zero improvements. The city has a goal to eliminate traffic related deaths in the city of Austin, and Vision Zero is kind of what we call that plan. And so $65 million will go to safety improvements like those pedestrian hybrid beacons that let you cross the street. If there's not a light, you know, they make that sound and they blink. $20 million for safe routes to school, which is just sidewalks that connect neighborhoods to schools so that kids can get there. This is a big project, $16 million for a new bridge over Longhorn Dam. So this is in East Austin. If people are hike and bike trail users, this is over that Longhorn Dam. It's a terrible bridge right now. It's difficult to get over if you're biking or walking. You can see here like a fancy new design. They want to build something that's a lot more pedestrian friendly. And then $30 million to basically completely redesign Congress Avenue Bridge. So this is the Bat Bridge. And what they want to do is redesign it so there's more sidewalk space, a completely separated bike and scooter lane, more viewing areas for people to see the bats, but still allow bikes and scooters to get through. If you are a bicyclist in this area, this can sometimes be an issue. And then $53 million for multimodal road improvements in certain parts of town. These are primarily clustered in East Austin, and streets that need a little love. And also a lot of them will be redesigned to include sidewalks and bike lanes. So a whole list of projects there. The big thing that's key for people, the price tag on this is about $65 a year in property tax increase. Again, if you have that home worth $325, once all the bonds are sold, this is like a little confusing, like what a bond is, but just like in basic terms, a bond is a loan the city of Austin takes out, and they pay for it by increasing our property taxes. But it doesn't all happen at once. They're not going to build all of these projects on day one. They take out little pieces of the loan at once as they need it. That way, they're not increasing your property taxes from day one. So if voters approve Prop B, unlike Prop A, it's not like you're going to see this increase reflected in your property tax bill like right away. It'll actually take a few years before the city starts spending it, but in total about $65 a year.
Okay,
So
that's super helpful. Nathan or Liz, did you have any other little numbers on there? Nathan, you came out of nowhere last time with those little like statistics facts. I didn't know if you had something else up your sleeve.
No, Amy covered all of that. I'm not normally a math guy, but I've tried to get more into math with this kind of stuff, because it can be very confusing to try to understand how these things are going to impact you personally and what it might mean for other residents in Austin.
Great. So folks, as you might be able to tell by time, we're probably going to run a little over 7:30, but I'd love for you to be able to stay, because again, we're going to go into school boards right now, and then afterwards we're going to have a Q&A, and a lot has been said here, and so I'd love for you to we have all these experts on call to really just, inundate them with questions. They're here for it. So I would love, before we go into this Q&A, why school boards matter. I feel like I'm very confused on that, and why am I voting on them? What's their importance? I believe Amy, you'll be able to help me with this question.
Yeah, I was saying earlier, I'm not like a super expert on this, to be honest, but to explain in basic terms why school boards are important, I mean, I think one thing that this pandemic has shown us is why school boards are so important, because it's your school board that had to make a lot of the decisions around, should we reopen? How should we reopen? Should we not reopen? How should we close? How do we make sure that students who don't have access to the internet are being equitably served by our public education system? How do we make sure that those kids are getting fed if they were on a free or reduced school lunch program and now they're stuck at home? All of these things are things that your school board deals with. And so, for me personally, like, I don't have kids. I have to admit, like, school board was not usually on the top of my mind. I just have other priorities in life. But this pandemic has made me think more about it. It's like, oh man, this is like far-reaching impact. And these people are making really important decisions about the education of the kids of our entire city. Another big thing that school boards have been dealing with that you might have seen in the news, like pre-pandemic times, is closing of schools. So this has been another big issue you might have seen in the news. As East Austin has continued to change, there's been some calls to close some East Austin schools. That has wrapped up into a whole bunch of equity issues, and there's a lot to unpack there. And that's another area where a school board plays a big role. So it's a really important job that tends to get like the least amount of attention.
Right. No, you were mentioning at the beginning, right? Is that like, what was it? 13% of Austin voters in that different election were able to show up, right? So I love this focus on like, what can we do locally for our community, right? Like, I'm very excited that we had this big conversation. Nate or Liz, do you have any other extra ideas on the school board, or would you love to hear some questions?
I would just like really underline that those positions, I mean, AISD, school board, city council, things like that. I mean, those have massive implications. for every issue. I mean, not there because they're not just deciding what to do as a matter of policy on any given issue. They're also deciding what to do with, federal grant money that comes through, and just, I mean, every issue is an equity issue. I think we've learned that now, but I hope we have. But, things like AISD are a really, really good place if you want to make an impact from an equity standpoint. AISD is like ground zero on some of that stuff, and City Council is right behind it. So,
yeah, I'll add one thing to that. As Amy mentioned, we saw how important school boards are during the pandemic. School boards were the folks that chose to continue to give food to kids who needed it. There's a lot of kids on free and reduced meal plans in AISD, so not just free lunch, but free breakfast. AISD feeds hungry families. They feed hungry kids. And that was one of the biggest challenges the school board faced during COVID is, how are we going to feed kids? And so they had to very quickly operationalize a really hard logistics problem of where to put essentially, I think they stood up food trucks as essential, or school buses as food trucks, to give out meals to needy families. There's one parked right by my condo in East Austin, and people need to eat, little kids need to eat. So it's really important. And something that Nate and I talk a lot about at Good Politics is the privilege of not feeling the effects of bad policy, which is why it's really important for all of us to lean in, because I have food in my pantry, right? So some of these things don't matter as much, but they matter a whole lot if it affects somebody else. Mm-hmm. So voting like we all felt the effects of these policies is really important.
That's powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm so glad that you guys were here. Thanks for making all of this so accessible. This has been so helpful. I do have a few questions that can help clear some things up. Liz, you just spoke, and maybe you can speak more on this, but we have a question on, why do we elect judges, right? Why is it our responsibility to elect them?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I don't have a good answer. There's not all judges are elected, number one. It is the way our government is set up in Texas. There are arguments to be made on both sides about the people electing the judge. They're the ones who interpret the law the way, as Nathan said earlier, Congress, so the House of Representatives and our US senators, they make the law. The president enforces the law, and then our judges, not only the Supreme Court, but our judges, they're the ones who interpret the law. So there's an argument to be made that those people should be held accountable, and they should be representative of their constituents, of Texans, right, and of our values. So I understand that, but then I also, there's an argument there that should they be campaigning? Mm-hmm. Right. And so I get it, but I don't think I gave a good answer, because I also want to kind of present both sides, but it's a very good question.
No, I love being able to hear both sides of that thought. I also wonder if we can think about, is there space for us to change the name of some of these misnomer positions, right? We think about voter suppression, we think about this equity, right? For example, and here we have, why not just change the name of the railroad commissioner, right? Is there a space for us to talk about changing the names on the ballots, that way they're more easily understandable? How do we increase voter literacy?
I'll take that one, and then I'm sure Amy and Nathan, you guys can chime in. This is something I feel really strongly about. I have a very hot take that we do not have voter literacy for a reason, right? Texas severely underfunds civic education, and it's abhorrent, because we should all know how our democracy works. And there's a reason that people named Coach are the ones who teach you Civics 101 and Intro to Texas Government, and then that's it, right? We're not great at creating informed voters. And there's awesome organizations like Amy's or Good Politics or League of Women Voters who, we're all trying really hard to put information out there to make people just feel comfortable, because there's so much intellectual bullying that goes into engaging in democracy and engaging in politics. that that people self-select out of the democratic process. And that's really sad because we need everybody. We need everybody all the time, because votes do count. I mean, the other day I heard that there was a city council race that was decided by like 15 votes in a runoff. Like, it's crazy. Your vote really counts, especially down ballot. So in terms of making things more accessible and renaming things, in terms of renaming positions like the railroad commissioner to like energy commissioner, it makes sense to me. I think there's a reason that people wouldn't want to do that, because then we would pay more attention to it. So kind of thinking about it from that lens might be helpful. But I am for heavily funded civic education. I am for the U.S. government giving out grants to civic educators and to civic nonprofits. But yeah, I'm curious to hear what Nathan and Amy have to say on that.
That was great, Liz. I completely agree. I think the one thing I'll just add, if people are really interested in this topic, there's a group in town. It's definitively a left-leaning group, but it's called Austinites for Progressive Reform. It's just kind of getting started. And what they're trying to focus on is some ways to improve the democratic process in Austin. And this includes things like ranked choice voting, which is like a different way to vote, to get rid of runoffs. It gets a little bit like civic nerdy, but some of that democracy dollars or like publicly funded campaigns. They're working on proposals to a whole series of different potential changes to our democratic system that are kind of focused on this. So if you are interested in that, and that's kind of the way you lean, that might be a group that you want to get engaged with. It's called Austinites for Progressive Reform, because they're actively working on this right now. So
I love. Nate, did you have something that you wanted to add, or I have a few more questions.
Just snaps.
No, a lot of mic drops have been happening tonight. So really quickly, while we're on the railroad commissioner, I just want to circle back. So there's 3 of them. Are all 3 up for election, or is that again based off of my ballot? Okay, just one. Alrighty, awesome. And then, so speaking of my ballot, I have 2 questions there. Is that one, can I just go in and click all Republican, all Democrat? And then 2, if I don't vote for something in my ballot, does that disqualify my ballot? So if I don't vote for the county judge or et cetera, can that disqualify my ballot? Would love input.
The answer on both is no. You cannot do straight ticket voting anymore. You have to go all the way through.
Okay.
And you do have to go all the way through, right? So if you just stopped and walked away, it would be invalid. But if you go all the way through, even if you skip, so to your second question, even if you skip a race or 2, as long as you validate your results at the end and take your ballot and put it in the feeder, you're good.
Okay, awesome. Anything else I should think about when I think about actually being at the ballot? Hi, yes.
I have something. Do not take your cell phone in with you. That's a big thing. I think probably most of us on this call have been poll workers before. It's a pain in the ass. Don't take your cell phone, even though you are a good person and you did your research and you wrote down every single county judge that you're gonna elect, and it's on your phone. You cannot take your phone with you. You can take in a piece of paper. So take in a piece of paper, write down who you're gonna vote for, and bring that in with you. Paper is allowed. Like, think of it like voting isn't a test. You're not being tested on like remembering everything. Like, it's not a test. Write down everything and take that with you and just keep it in your pocket and get your sticker.
Am I allowed?
Which is very good, because there were 39. There were 39 races on my ballot, so I'm glad I didn't have to remember everything.
Right. Can I print things off? And then I remember back in the day, what newspaper used to give me all the little information? Am I able to bring in material that I didn't scratch myself?
yeah, I'll say the Austin Chronicle is where you can find the League of Women Voters Guide right now. I like have it over here. You can, right now it's inside editions of the Austin Chronicle. So if you pick one up, you can grab a League of Women Voters Guide for Austin and find all of that. And you can print something out as well. but I don't know if you're like a lot of people just don't have printers at their house, and now that you can't go in your office to steal their printer, you might just have to write it down yourself. But you can just, a lot of organizations in town like allow you to just print some, vote411.org, you can just print right off your selections and then take it right with you.
Okay, that sounds perfect. That's a lot of great information. So then I want to be really respectful of people's time. We went a few minutes over. We have so many useful links in the chat. I would recommend before you leave this meeting to just go through this chat and make sure you click all the things that you would love. I was wondering if, Amy, you shared a beautiful deck with us. I was wondering if you could tell us where you got the information. And then I'd love to end this with a little self-promo time. If you guys want to plug your respective orgs, that would be incredible. So Amy, if I want to get this deck, where do I go?
Yeah, so you can go, I'll drop the link in here.
We love a link.
If you go to the austincommon.com/vote, that's where we have all of our election guides in one place. So we produce a lot of our stuff for Instagram first. So you can also just go to the Austin Common, _Austin_Common on Instagram, and you can find all of our voting guides, or you can just go to this website and you'll be able to see them kind of all laid out in one place. And everything that was in those decks that I showed you is listed as a different type of voter guide on our website and on our Instagram page.
I love this. And then everyone can now see on the screen, if you want to move some boxes around, that here are all the socials and websites. But yeah, this camera, plug your guys' stuff. I'd love to hear where I can get more information.
I can cover good politics. Follow us, Instagram and Twitter, kind of our sweet spot. For Instagram, we not only post all the job descriptions as reminders and helpful video content, but we repost everybody who tags us in their voting selfie. So obviously 100 feet away from your polling place with your sticker, throw it up, tag us, we repost all of it. We love to see it. We also, we answer questions in our DMs all the time. So as you have questions, as you navigate your democracy, let us know. We have an amazing board of directors who are way smarter than Nate and I. They know so much more. And we are always on call. Our DMs are always open for your questions. So at our GoodPolitics on Instagram.
Not me drunk sliding into GoodPolitics DMs. I love this. That's my new Friday night plan.
You can drunk DM us anytime. I would love it.
Oh, it's awesome.
And then we have the info for the Austin Commons. No Twitter because they value everyone's mental health. They said, no. Value yourself. Get off Twitter. But IG, Facebook, right? Anything else, Amy?
Yeah, I would just say Instagram is the best place to reach us. Just like Liz said, we're also more than happy to answer any questions you have. You can feel free to reach out. We also have a podcast, like I mentioned at the beginning. It's called the Austin Common Radio Hour. So if you're a podcast listener and you prefer to do a little election research while you're on a run or cleaning your house or something, we've got candidate forums with most of the city council candidates, as well as some general tips and things like that in podcast form. So you can find us wherever you get your podcasts.
Ooh, good plug. Thank you. And then Nate, I feel like we've gone through everyone. Is there anything else special you'd love to plug for us?
I actually really just want to say that, I have been so excited seeing the level of civic engagement, just not even just this year, but like every year over the last 4 years. I think people are really understanding, like Liz said, and like Amy's talked about, the importance of all these down ballot races, how close to home politics really is for all of us, how personal it really is for all of us. And so I just wanted to end with some numbers. So as of this morning, 31,677,305 Americans had voted. That is 22.9% of the total votes cast nationwide in 2016, and we're still 2 weeks out.
Wow.
And 4,069,976 Texans have voted as of today, as of this morning, before everybody voted today. That's 45% of total votes cast in 2016 in the state of Texas, and 24% of our 17 million registered voters in the state. So it's just, I mean, and they're projecting that we could have 12 million voters in Texas, which would be a 30% increase over the 8.9 million that voted in 2016. So like this level of engagement is amazing. And I want to just give a big shout out and a big thank you to y'all for being engaged and being passionate about this stuff. So I don't know. I could barely sleep. Like the day that early vote started, I like snapped awake at 5:30 in the morning because it really just is exciting to me to see Americans overcome all of these barriers and Texans overcome a lot of the barriers that are put in place to keep them from voting, to just get it done. So anyway, I'm really excited about all that. I think those numbers are super encouraging. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here tonight with y'all.
We're so glad that you guys were here. Again, Global Shapers and Groupthink hosts this. Groupthink is a social arm of Global Shapers. And then something that hasn't been said here, but I would love to end on, and everyone please go enjoy your Tuesday night, is that it doesn't end after Election Day, right? That's just the beginning. And so now that you are equipped with all of this education, you can now go figure out what your specific niche is, right? That like maybe like Liz, you're like, the district attorney and what they do is something I'm passionate about. That's where I'm going to devote my energy. Maybe you're just like, to a thing that I'm going to give my life for, you go to devote your life to Prop B, right? Like this is a place for you to hone in on what your interests are and then go spend the next 2 years, next 4 years, really devoting time to it, right? This is the beginning, it's a marathon, right? So stretch, make sure you don't get those like terrible acids in your knees, right? We got a long haul ahead of us, but I'm glad that everyone was here to really learn. Again, Railroad Commissioner, let's change that name. That's what I'm passionate about. But thank you so much everyone for coming through. Yeah, I wish everyone a really great Tuesday night. Bye, guys.
Thank you for confirming that it's Tuesday. I just can't remember. I can't tell anymore. This was so much fun. Thank you, Elaine.
Yeah, you made me
Thank
nervous
you.
on Tuesday.
Thank you.